What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Down Once More. Matt here, and we are kicking off the first week of September with a little bit of a TV recap, what's coming to streaming, what's coming to theaters, a little bit of a grab bag episode, as these mini episodes tend to be. But first off, this is the first episode after Rayleigh's triumphant return when we reviewed Weird, the Al Yankovic story starring Daniel Radcliffe. So if you haven't watched that episode, I encourage you to go check it out. It was a lot of fun having Rayleigh back. Really glad that she's back on the pod. That being said, for recording schedule purposes, in theory, typically she would be back on next week's episode. I have to travel for a work trip coming up, and so recording schedules are a little bit funky. So we'll see. She might be back in 2 weeks instead of next week. So stay tuned for that. And but for this week, like I said, we're going to do a bit of a TV recap, what's streaming, what's coming to theaters in September, as we like to do these episodes to kick off the new month. So, some news. They announced that Ted Lasso is coming back for season 4. I have not watched season 3 of Ted Lasso yet. There was enough of a gap between and then just so many other things I was watching. I haven't done it. I've heard mixed things about it, kind of mixed things after season 1. And I kind of, on the pod, spoiled for Rayleigh as she was doing her watch about the kind of the vibe of season 2, and got a little bit of hate from her for that. So apologies, I won't get into it here. But it was ultimately a fairly feel-good show. Jason Sudeikis' character, Ted Lasso, is a really entertaining one and just positive vibes, and then also dealing with some really heavy stuff. So I'm excited that it's coming back for season 4 still. I think ultimately more of the show, as long as it's not just milking it and forcing storylines, I think it could be good. I'm excited for it. I did finish finally watching season 3 of FX's show The Bear with Jeremy Allen White, and I'd heard this was something that I went in with pretty low expectations because it also got a lot of hate on kind of going downhill. I personally loved season 1 of The Bear. I thought it was some of the highest anxiety that I've ever had watching a TV show with those kitchen scenes. I've never worked in a kitchen like that before. I worked adjacent to a kitchen at a summer camp, and that had its crazy moments, but this was a whole other level, and I thought it just that anxiety and that frenetic pace of a kitchen was captured well in the show, and I thought it was magical. Like, it was almost a perfect season of television. Season 2 had some great moments, but overall it kind of dropped off a little bit down for me. I didn't love it. It had a lot more storytelling and character building, which is good and which is necessary in a show like it. But it kind of, I don't know. I missed that time in the kitchen with the whole gang that we had in season 1. We didn't get nearly as much of that in season 2. It was almost like everyone was off on their own side quests and then coming together towards the end. And season 3 is a little bit more of the same, although I did feel like we got more of the whole gang together in the kitchen in season 3 than we did in season 2. There's a minor spoiler here, so skip ahead if you don't want to hear it. There was just the plot device of both Sydney and Bear Akarmi having kind of the visions of what was going on, of reviews that were coming out. Like, they were thinking about what reviews could have said, and then the side storyline of Sid maybe leaving for some more stability because just feeling like Carmi wasn't valuing her and making her part of the team. I don't know. I didn't love those pieces of it, but we did get some more of that just frantic kitchen action when they were launching things and the new menu turning over every night. And I thought overall it was a really strong season. I don't like the cliffhanger endings that they do with the to be continued. I get that's what you do in a TV series. I don't know. When we're doing such short seasons, it almost feels a little bit like a slap in the face. But and some great cameos, as always. We get John Cena in this season. We get Josh Hartnett coming off of kind of almost a little bit of resurgence. He's making more of coming back to movies after it's been a while since he had been heavily featured, prominently featured. And I recently watched Trap, the M. Night Shyamalan film with him in it, which I actually really enjoyed. I think I'd give it a solid 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was a really entertaining concept and fun kind of thriller movie. And so that just came out on digital. So if you're interested, you like thrillers, you kind of like Shyamalan's. I thought it had a different vibe than a lot of his other movies, but I thought it was really good, really entertaining. Josh Hartnett does a fantastic job in the role of Cooper in that movie. Another movie that I watched recently was Borderlands, and I think I talked about it on here, that I loved the Borderlands games for what they are. I thought the looter shooter aspect is a lot of fun. I think that going back and trying to play them now, some of the dialogue and kind of the over the top jokes at a mile a minute gets kind of irritating and annoying when you're playing it. But I'd talked about before that I felt like besides Jack Black as Claptrap, this entire movie was miscast. And having watched it, now that it's out on digital, I was spot on with that. Particularly Jamie Lee Curtis, her over the top character, which I don't know if that's how it was written, that's how it was intended, but it just didn't work for me, and it was so annoying, and it took me out of it. I thought, I forget the actor's name. He played Drago's kid in Creed. I think I want to say Fiorin Montu or something like that. He plays Krieg, who's the psycho from the team. And I thought he was decently cast. And Florian Montano. Maybe mispronouncing that. But I thought he was decently cast for what that role is. He did a good job. I felt like Ariana Greenblatt was just not very good in this. For her roles as minuscule as they were, as young Ahsoka in Ahsoka, and then young Gamora in the Avengers, either Infinity War or Endgame. I forget which one it's young Gamora. I want to say Infinity War. She was good for what those roles were. And in the Barbie movie, she was decent. But in this, I don't know if it's how they had that character written of Tiny Tina, the vibes they were going for. It was just rough. Everyone seemed like they were kind of just phoning it in. Cate Blanchett did a decent performance as Lilith, but ultimately I also feel like she was miscast. Kevin Hart as Roland was just wild casting. And just make him a different character. He does not resemble Roland in the video games at all. And I get it's hard to make video game adaptations. I was just on the Brewcast, another podcast, and we talked a little bit there about video game adaptations. And actually, go check that out. It's on YouTube. We streamed it. It'll be coming to podcast feed in the next day or so, but had a really fun talk about the podcast as a whole, how it got started, kind of musicals, musical movies, and video game adaptations. It was a fun conversation. So go check out the Brewcast. If you haven't already, I'll put an image of it in here on YouTube, but go check out Brewcast and my discussion on there. But man, Borderlands, the story fell flat. The action fell flat. The visuals fell flat for how over the top and bonkers and insane this could have been. It was just rough. And all signs from what I had seen, it apparently had a fantastic script, and that's how it kind of attracted some of these big name actors. And then Eli Roth just played around with it, rewrote it, and his vision was just hot garbage. But that's my vibes. Don't waste your money on seeing Borderlands. Also, Rings of Power Season 2 has premiered on Amazon Prime now. And Season 1, I had mixed feelings on. The Harfoots storyline with the whole proto-hobbits, before the hobbits come out there, was brutal. Every time they were on screen, it annoyed the crap out of me. I did not care for that storyline. I did not care for any of those characters. Annoyed the shit out of me. Get them off my screen. And while they're not the primary focus of Season 2, they have had their share of moments, but we're only getting 2 of them, so it's not quite as annoying. Unfortunately, it's the 2 most annoying ones. But a fun fact about Rings of Power. Well, we also get that apparently Sauron had a Venom phase. If you've watched episode 1 of season 2, you will know what I meant. But I thought that was interesting to see that, to visualize, and kind of where they're going with that. People who are big Lord of the Rings and Tolkien lore fans have been shitting on the series forever. But the visuals are stunning. I am intrigued enough by the story that I keep watching it. And as Benjamin Walker in it as the High Elven King Gilgalad. And Benjamin Walker, for musical fans, if you're watching this pod, you might be one. He played Andrew Jackson in Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson, which we've talked about on here a few times. He also played Abraham Lincoln in Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. So nice to see him entering the Lord of the Rings universe. That's going to do it for a random rundown. Now, just some quick hitters on what is coming to streaming in September that I would recommend and want to call attention to. I'm going to start, but before we get to streaming, let's just knock theaters out of the way. Beetlejuice, the long-awaited sequel to the Michael Keaton starring Beetlejuice movie, is coming to theaters this Friday, if you're listening to this when it comes out, September 6th. I watched the original Beetlejuice for the first time a couple months ago, and this is going to be one kind of like Shrek I've talked about in other things. I didn't grow up with it. I don't have the nostalgia with it. I felt like it was fine. I enjoyed it for what it was, but it's not like I have to rush out and see the sequel now. I am seeing the Beetlejuice musical later on. Well, it'll be next year, but in this Broadway season that's about to start up for me later this month with Dear Evan Hansen. Beetlejuice, the musical, is what's capping out that Broadway season. So I'm excited to see that because I've heard good things about that. But this movie, it looks fine. It looks okay. Jenna Ortega's in it. I feel like she has been typecast for kind of these creepy movies and those kinds of roles. But she does a pretty solid job. She does a great performance in X too. I was watching the Ty West movie, so watched X, Pearl, and then Maxine, which Maxine I thought was fine. I feel like X is kind of the peak of those three movies, but Pearl was solid too, and Maxine was decent for what it is. But Beetlejuice comes out September 6th. We have Speak No Evil, which stars James McAvoy, and if you have been to any movies in theaters recently, you have seen this trailer because they play it in front of everyone, and I saw it a number of times watching football this past weekend, which also, football is back. Nebraska, after playing our one small school team, UTEP, Nebraska's looking like they might be back, so we got Colorado coming up this week. I'm feeling hopeful. There's your little college football thing. That's all I'll get into. This isn't a football podcast. But Speak No Evil. It's an adaptation of a 2022 Danish movie. So very recent. And a trailer, it looks intriguing. It looks like it is an intense thriller, a little bit of horror elements to it. I'm interested in it. I don't know anything about the Danish original. I do feel like a lot of times when they adapt foreign movies in the US, they just make them significantly worse. And so we'll see what happens with that, but it looks promising from the trailer. I'm intrigued. And then Francis Ford Coppola, who did the Godfather movies, his movie Megalopolis is coming out September 27th with Adam Driver, and I don't know. This movie looks wild. Here's the description of it. The city of New Rome is the main conflict between Caesar Catalina, a brilliant artist in favor of a utopian future, and the greedy mayor Franklin Cicero. Names sound familiar. Between them is Julia Cicero, her loyalty divided between the two houses. And this is apparently Francis Ford Coppola's Coppola, I'm mispronouncing that one, his kind of passion project. He wrote the script in early 1980s apparently, but film was kept on Jesus Christ, kept on the back burner, partially due to his financial debts. They finally began pre-production in 2001, but then it was shelved after filming 30 hours of second unit footage because after the September 11th attacks, there was supposedly a scene in the script that predicted the attacks. And then he abandoned it in 2007 and began developing it again in 2019. And he financed the entire $120 million out of his own pocket, which he apparently did with Apocalypse Now as well. And I don't know, this one, there's some recent kind of drama around it, some accusations of how he was acting on set to female talent. And so we'll see. Lots of discourse around this movie. We'll see how it is. It looks massive. It looks interesting. I saw one person say that when it screened at some kind of film festival, that there's apparently a live, almost audience participation, live kind of piece to this film, which seems wild. I don't know. I'm intrigued by this. But those are the main things coming to theater this month. Now, what's coming to streaming? On September 27th, coming to Apple Plus is Wolf, which is the Brad Pitt and George Clooney action film where they star as two lone fixers that kind of have to work together. So I'm intrigued by that. Seems like a great cast. And Apple Plus has some absolutely fantastic series and shows, and they've been crushing it, knocking it out of the park. So I'm intrigued by this. September 27th is when it comes to Apple TV Plus. I'm going to jump to Netflix now. Netflix, the first thing that comes out this Friday, September 6th, is Rebel Ridge, which kind of gives me vibes of a modern day Rambo with some race elements thrown in there. The actual description is an ex-Marine grapples his way through a web of small town corruption when an attempt to post bail for his cousin escalates into a violent standoff with the local police chief, played by Don Johnson of Miami Vice fame. Aaron Pierre plays the main character, Terry Richmond, who is also playing either Mufasa or Scar, one of those two, in the Mufasa movie that's set to come out this year. But also has Anna Sophia Robb and David Denman in it, who played Roy from The Office. Good old Roy. So it looks very intriguing to me. I think this looks like a very interesting kind of revenge action movie on Netflix. And so I'm excited for that one coming out this weekend. September 7th, Edge of Tomorrow. It's an older movie. Not older, but it's been out for a while. Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt. I feel like this movie kind of flew under the radar when it was in theaters because they had title changes. It was Live, Die, Repeat, and then it was Edge of Tomorrow, and is a fantastic sci-fi action movie. Kind of mixes a futuristic war and Groundhog Day, and it's a lot of fun. Emily Blunt is fantastic in it. Tom Cruise is fantastic in it. Recommend Edge of Tomorrow if you haven't watched it. Comes to Netflix September 7th. On September 15th, seasons 1 and 2 of the original Starz series Heels comes to Netflix. I really enjoyed Heels. It stars Stephen Amell and I'm forgetting who plays his brother. But it stars Stephen Amell as a kind of wrestler and runner of a small town wrestling league, the Duffy Wrestling League. And so the heel, if you're not familiar with the world of professional wrestling, a heel is what they call the villain. Kind of the person, the face are the ones who are the popular ones, the good guys, and heels are the bad guys. So you can have a heel turn when a face turns heel. Nice little play on words there. And becomes the villain and betrays them. And so it focuses around two brothers, the Spade brothers. Stephen Amell, who is from Arrow, and he's going to be leading a Suits spinoff series. Plays Jack Spade, and Alexander Ludwig plays his brother Ace Spade, who's the face, Jack's the heel. And I really enjoyed this series. I feel like even if you don't like professional wrestling, it focuses more on kind of the drama and the behind the scenes stuff, how you're writing the story, how you're scripting these matches. Because I hate to break it to you all, but professional wrestling, the story's not real. The action, the physicality, still real. Maybe not quite to the extreme that they portray it, but the athletic feats still there and impressive. I think this is a fantastic series. I'm glad it should get more eyes on it now that it is on Netflix on September 15th. And hopefully it gets picked up for a third season because of how season 2 ended. I need to see what happens next. I need another season of that. So Heels is coming. And also keeping in the professional wrestling realm, on September 19th, a Japanese series comes out called The Queen of Villains. It is a semi-biographical, semi-true story of Dump Matsumoto, a Japanese female professional wrestler in the 1980s. And so I just saw the trailer for this today, and that looks intriguing to me. So I'm hoping to check that out too when I get a second. And that's kind of the main things that are coming to Netflix this month. Jumping over to Max, the big one is the Penguin series, the Colin Farrell starring kind of spin-off series set in the world of Matt Reeves' The Batman, Robert Pattinson's Batman. This takes place, I believe they said, a few weeks after the ending of that movie, and kind of about Oswald Cobblepot's, Colin Farrell's character, rise to power as the Penguin. And it looks like a very mafia, mob, crime show, and it looks gritty, and I'm really excited for this. I thought Colin Farrell was fantastic in the role, completely transformed, doesn't even look like him, and did such a good job. I'm excited for this series. It premieres September 19th. Jumping back to the beginning of the month, September 7th, Wise Guy, David Chase and the Sopranos, a documentary about the creation of the Sopranos and the creator there. That show, the popular HBO series I just finished for the first time and thought was really well written and acted and really good series. That documentary comes out September 7th. And also the A24 movie Civil War comes out September 13th. This is one I had mixed feelings about. It wasn't what I was expecting at all, but it is so well shot and it builds tension in certain moments that's fantastic. I thought it was a very intriguing movie, just not what I was expecting. It's a lot slower pace, and it's more about war journalists and war photographers than the actual new Civil War that is happening behind the scenes here. Another couple places with just one series worth talking about coming out is Disney Plus. The WandaVision spinoff, Agatha All Along series, is coming out September 18th. And I can't decide what I feel about this movie. I generally enjoy watching the Marvel things. I'm not support everything they do, think everything they do is magic and perfect. No, they've had some stinkers. From the trailers, this looks like it's one that might just not be for me and might be a bit of a stinker and a dud. But we'll see. We'll give it a fair shake. September 18th is when the first episode premieres. On Peacock, there is a not biodoc, whatever. It's fictionalized and it's acted out. It's not a documentary, but it's Fight Night, the $1 Million Heist. And that's coming out, and that seems intriguing to me as well. And that stars Kevin Hart. It's a miniseries that, this is kind of the description there. Following his return to boxing after dodging the draft, Ali beats Jerry Quarry. Later that night, hundreds are robbed at his after party in a massive armed robbery. So it's a TV miniseries on Peacock. It's got a very kind of stacked cast of people that you know in small roles from things, and it looks really intriguing, kind of a crime action thriller miniseries that's based on a true story. And so that's coming to Peacock this month on September 5th, so the day after this comes out. Also, let's jump to the last thing that I'm going to highlight is some on Hulu. Amazon Prime didn't really have anything that stood out or spoke to me this month, but we've got on the 3rd, so before the day before this episode comes out, is a new series, English Teacher. That almost looks like a mix up of AP Bio, Abbott Elementary, and some other shows, kind of taking place of a new English teacher in a school and hijinks, things that he's dealing with. That comes out September 3rd. I'll check it out. I'm always down for a good comedy series and give it a shot. The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives comes out September 6th. And this is something that looks wild and I am intrigued by. So here's the synopsis of this. If you're chronically on social media, you might be aware of this, but it's almost like a Real Housewives series, kind of following that. So it says the scandalous world of a group of Mormon mom influencers implodes when they get caught in the midst of a swinging sex scandal that makes international headlines. Now their sisterhood is shook to its core. Faith, friendship, and reputations are all on the line. Will Mom Talk be able to survive and continue to give the rule book a run for its money, or will this group fall from grace? And I'm intrigued by this. I am all the way in. I love me some good trashy reality television, and this looks wild, and I'm all in. September 13th, season 2 of The Old Man premieres. This is the Jeff Bridges series that follows, he's an ex-CIA operative. And I have heard really good things about this series, but I have not watched it yet. But season 2 comes out. Like I said, I've heard good things. It's on the list. There is just, we're spoiled for choice here in the US with all the TV that we have going on. On September 18th, speaking of kind of biopics and true stories there, American Sports Story focuses on Aaron Hernandez this season. We had The People versus O.J. Simpson a few years ago. And so, what's his bucket? The Glee founder, and American Horror Story, Ryan what? Google. Hey Google. No, I don't have an Android, so I can't say hey Google. And why is it not going to show up on anything? Ryan Murphy. Thank you. Ryan Murphy produced and ran series. American Sports Story comes out September 18th is when it premieres on Hulu and FX. And then we also have finally on September 30th, not Ela Fisher, Ela Glazer, not Ela Glazer either. I just can't pronounce anything. The movie Babes comes out. I think I highlighted it because I'd seen the preview in theaters and thought it looked very intriguing, like a good R-rated comedy. And that comes out, Alana Glazer. Fail on my part. The Alana Glazer starring comedy has Sandra Bernhard in it too. It comes out on Hulu on September 30th, so it's making its streaming debut then. So that kind of wraps it up on what jumped out at me, what's coming to streaming, what's coming to theaters, and my initial thoughts on some things that are streaming and out now on digital. So that's going to do it for this grab bag episode. Stay tuned for next week. It'll be another fun episode. In the meantime, like I said, if you haven't, go watch Weird, the Al Yankovic story on Roku, and then go watch Rayleigh and I's review of it and our fun kind of reunion episode that we did that came out last week. And then also go check out the episode that I was on of the Brewcast, and that's on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all that fun stuff. Links will be in the bio for all these things. Thank you all. Thank you for listening, watching, however you follow the pod. Appreciate it. However you found us, found your way here. Thank you all. Have a great week. And don't forget to go down once more. Later.